You are listening to the Bat Flip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damian here with my co-host, Matt. We are coming to you on September 14th of 2021. That's going to be episode 52. We got a milestone strikeout that happened on Sunday. We have a new hit leader for the first state of Delaware all time. We had our 9th no-hitter that broke the record for the most in a year. We had some beef between the two New York teams. And then we're going to do a rundown of the standings for the Wildcard and show you what the last week series and the series coming up for this weekend to wrap the show. We'll do Players of the Week. But before we get into all that, how you doing, Matt?
Doing pretty good. Just had a real busy week. Real busy week with work stuff, and then we had a good college football and NFL weekend, so that was fun to watch. Along with my typical baseball intake, which makes me on like sports overload right now. This time of year, it's always like the first between like the September and October. I've got football starting up, and then baseball is really in the big in the pennant chases and then the postseason. So there's like a lot going on at the same time. So I'm kind of in overload right now. So it's good way to spend some time. But
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, Saturday was a big day. Seeing Oregon beat Ohio State there in Columbus, that was pretty big. And then we had the NASCAR race too. I mean, even they're in the middle of their playoffs for whoever watches that. So it was definitely insane jumping back between like 4 different things going on of sports at the one time. So pretty exciting time to be a sports fan.
no doubt.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into to the show. We have a member joining the 3,000 strikeout club, and that is Max Scherzer, now of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He got it. What inning was that? I forget.
I think it was Saturday.
No, it was Sunday. It was during the day.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, he's the 19th member to join the 3,000 strikeout club.
Yeah, very impressive feat. Something that we don't see that much of anymore, just because of the amount of limitations that pitchers have in innings. You used to see, just people throwing a sheer amount of innings, they'd end up with those strikeouts. But now you have to really have like record-breaking strikeout totals in order to accomplish a feat like that. What a fantastic job by Max Scherzer. He's been so good for such a long time. You look at his numbers this year and his 14th big league season. 162 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts per 9, 102 walks per 9. Home run balls have really been his biggest weakness, but not too bad at 1.11 homers per 9, 2.17 ERA on the season. He's been even better than he was in Washington since he's come over to Los Angeles. So, and he's a guy who, when you look at his overall legacy, as we talk about this week with his 3,000 strikeout, he's already cemented a Hall of Fame career. He's a World Series champion. He's won multiple Cy Young awards. 66 wins above replacement, and that number's just going to go up. A career 3.12 ERA. Obviously, as we talked about, the 3,000 strikeouts. Since he's the 19th guy to ever do it. He's about to move up to 18th on the list because Justin Verlander being injured, not pitching at all right now. So he's gonna pass Justin Verlander here in the next couple starts. Just a fantastic career. A guy who is just right up there on that list. I mean, you look at top right now he's already in the top 35, 40 pitchers of all time. He's number 40. He's 40th all time in WAR, and he's still got 3 or 4 years left in him. So he's a guy who's going to keep climbing up those leaderboards. I'm sure he's not going to fall off totally in one season, barring injury, which we obviously hope doesn't happen. He's gonna, he'll climb up. He'll probably end up being in the top 30 all time in WAR, which is so difficult for pitchers these days with the innings restrictions they have. I mean, you're looking around him, and the guys on the lists around him are, he's at 2,500 career innings, and I mean they're at 4,400 innings. 4,000 innings. Guy in 35th, Pud Galvin, 6,000 innings. So It's such a feat to accomplish that in the amount of innings he's thrown.
Yeah, and another interesting thing as I saw is that when he signed in January of 2015, which was through his age 29 season with the Nationals, he had 1,321 strikeouts. So just in the 7 seasons, he's had 1,679, which is an average based on his 7 seasons of pretty much 240 strikeouts a year.
Yeah,
It,
that's just that's just insane.
that's it.
Like,
Yeah, it is.
um,
And even this year, I mean, at 37, he has 219 strikeouts right now, and he's missed
yep,
some time.
yep, and he's up over 10 strikeouts per nine on his career. So I mean, he's probably um, the highest in WAR for those guys, other than like Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez. Like, he's definitely one of the best. He's got a higher strikeout per nine than Nolan Ryan. I mean,
That's
you
insane.
don't talk about that. Like, you talk about a guy who's really good. So
I mean, considering Nolan Ryan's #1 all time on the
yeah,
strikeout list.
yeah. But Nolan
Uh,
Ryan, of course, pitched 5,300 innings
yeah,
too. So
yeah. No way Scherzer's getting to 5,714 strikeouts.
no way. But still, I mean, he could. I mean, you could see him pitch two or three more really good seasons and end up. I mean,
No, he can get
theoretically, I
to
mean, he
top
could get to
10.
50. Yeah, he could get to 50 to 3,500, I think.
Yeah,
So
3,500 would put him 10th all time. 3,500 on the dot would put him
yeah,
10th all
so
time.
that would be. I mean, he could definitely end up there, and he
Absolutely.
would probably end up around 75 WAR, which would put him top 25 all time.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, this is a guy who's a surefire Hall of Famer, and no doubt one of the greatest pitchers of all time. So congratulations to him. The biggest thing about him too is he's just a gamer. Like, he's
Mm-hmm.
literally like that's what everyone likes about him. He's a gamer. You see him out on the mound. He's not a. I mean, he's kind of a head case, but not really. um,
He sort of
but
is.
he is a head case, but he channels it correctly.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the thing about him. It's just fun to watch. So, uh, just a fantastic career, and very excited for Max Scherzer. Glad he's not in Washington anymore, because it was tormenting me that the Braves had to face his team 18 times a year and him probably 4 or 5 times a year. So that wasn't very fun, and glad he's not with us and with the Nationals anymore. But just a guy who obviously is going to keep going. So we'll see what he ends up at. That would be interesting.
I will say I've enjoyed these 8 starts of Max Scherzer as a Dodger fan very much so with his like .88 ERA. It's been pretty fun. But
Oh yeah,
let's move over to this was a little interesting one, a little nugget. We don't spend a whole bunch of time on it, but Paul Goldschmidt became the all-time hit leader for Major League Baseball players born in the state of Delaware, passing Delino DeShields Jr. Of the mark on a double in the 4th inning. I believe it was on Saturday. Or no, it was today actually. Um, for at 1,549 hits.
yeah. I think that's an interesting number. Obviously, you talk about the Paul Goldschmidt is a guy who, I mean, he's a good player still. It's a good time to shine a light on him, though, as this isn't like the biggest accomplishment ever. There hadn't been a ton of players come out of Delaware, but you want to talk about a guy who has been good for a long time, and it's kind of underappreciated today. He's this season he's been pretty good. His career low WRC plus was 2019, his first year in St. Louis at 116. So he's for his entire career been a plus hitter, and I mean, he's a guy who is good first baseman. One of the things about him that makes him like very interesting is the fact that he's a guy who can run as a first baseman. He's always put up positive base running metrics, and a lot of stolen bases too. I mean, he had a 32 steal season in Arizona in 2016, and this year he's stolen 12 bases. So even at age 33, he's still stealing some bases. So just a very entertaining very entertaining player. He's a guy who has been, he's been good for a long time, and it's good to see him get some kind of milestone as somebody who, like I say, not too many people talk about Paul Goldschmidt anymore. and he's still a very good player. He's put up almost 4 wins above replacement this season. So we'll see what he ends up doing moving forward. Um, but good for him. Congratulations to him.
No, yeah. When he was in Arizona, he was one of the most feared hitters, in the game, especially as a Dodger fan. Watching him, like you said, with Scherzer 18 times a year, having to face him, you knew that like he was the guy. And I ever since he's went to St. Louis, I've actually seen like the narrative switch on him, like he's not good anymore, and that he's just like a below average player. And it's just like that's couldn't be farther from the truth. Like he's not putting up the Arizona numbers, but he's also starting to get into his early to mid 30s, and
Yeah, I
he's
mean he's
still
not
being
a
a pretty productive player. Like
yeah, I mean he's not a 7-win player anymore, but
no.
I mean this year he's put up almost 4 WAR. I mean he's
Yeah,
right
he's
along with
still
Freddie Freeman and the top first baseman in the league this year. So he's
yeah
been pretty dang good.
he's still really damn good. So I'm happy for Goldie because he's like even though he's one of the ones that tormented, he was always a guy who was just like a quiet guy, just went about his business, and is always respected really well around the game just because of that. Um, and a guy who he wanted to be in Arizona for a long time, and then it just kind of seemed that it was best for them to trade him. But definitely happy for Goldie that he's taken the hit lead at least in Delaware.
Yeah, that's cool for him. So probably more milestones to come. He'll hit his 300th home run hopefully next year. He's at 274 right now, so
He should.
he's moving up there on that list as well. So,
So, well, let's go on. I feel like this one has been one we've talked about probably way too much this year, between the actual action and the actual pitcher too. But that is the Brewers, mainly Corbin Burns. It was a combined no hitter though that they threw. It was the ninth no hitter for the season that broke the record for the most in a year. Burns pitched 8 innings of that at 14 strikeouts. I believe you said he was at 100 and something pitches.
I think he was at 115 is what I saw. Might have been a few less than that. I think it was 115, but yeah, Corbin Burns, man, 14 strikeouts, 1 walk in that game, kept it from being perfect. And then, of course, if you do get pulled in the eighth inning of a no hitter, who better to have come in than Josh Hader? I mean, nobody's going to hit him. So, you can pitch 8 innings of a no hitter, and then it's an automatic ninth. So,
Yeah, pretty much.
it's a great accomplishment. Really, the only thing that Corbin Burns hadn't done this year has been throw a no hitter, and then now he's throwing a no hitter. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
just crazy, crazy good. And he's honestly probably my front runner for Cy Young right now.
Yeah, it feels like he had kind of tailed off a little bit. Wheeler got in the conversation, and then it was Bueller, and then now it seems like Burns has picked back up, and then Scherzer's right there in that mix again. But Burns is definitely starting to pick it up, as the season's getting ready to wind down, and kind of throwing himself, I think, back in, being one of the main guys, because it seemed like he had tailed off for a little bit there in like the dog days of summer, in the season. But what was interesting is they did this against the Indians. So this is the Indians' third time being no hit this year. And they've actually had the same starting pitcher for all three of those no hitters. So Zach Plesac has started each of the games that Cleveland has been no hit.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like, I mean, it's hard to believe a team can get no hit 3 times in a season. Like that's, I mean, I've seen teams get hit no hit twice in a season. It was just like they were the butt of all the jokes, and then you have a team get no hit 3 times, and but that's a huge coincidence with the same guy. I mean, that's just crazy. He's um, Plesac, of course. Everyone jokes about everyone jokes about um, about DeGrom getting no run support, and then you got a guy that can't even get a hit for him.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't. I mean, of course, if DeGrom was pitching, he would get his own hit. But, um,
Yeah.
anyways, but we'll see. That was so cool for Corbin Burns. Like I say, kind of the cap of his fantastic season, and you heard it here first. We were talking about Corbin Burns last year and how good he was. So, you want to hear about good pitchers, come here because I mean nobody was talking about him until he broke that record this year. So, but we were talking about how good he was last year. So, um, we'll see what how he's able to finish up. But like I say, he's my guy for Cy Young right now.
Yeah, and for a little bit more of this series, it will hit more on it later. But on Sunday, the Indians started having a no hitter again with Eric Lauer doing it against them, and we were joking around that because Plesac wasn't the starter, the Indians would get a hit, and then they eventually did get the hit. I think it was like the 7th or 8th inning or something. So you can make that joke too. If Plesac doesn't start, then they're at least getting one hit that game.
Yeah, so I mean, hey, I wouldn't put it past the Cleveland to get no hit by with anybody on the mound,
No,
but
not
I
right
guess
now.
maybe Plesac got some maybe it's got in their heads or something.
Something about it. But let's move on to the next one, which is the Battle of New York. Was a really emotional game on Saturday with it being the 20-year anniversary since 9/11. They had like all the throwback uniforms, and they did a big celebration in remembrance of that. Um, so this whole series kind of had like at least Friday and Saturday had like a little bit of a somber feel to it. And then Sunday, the teams just decided like, hey, we're going to put that behind us, and we're just going to start hating each other again. And that is no more evident than Francisco Lindor and Giancarlo Stanton got into a little. It was just, I wouldn't say it was a scuffle because they really didn't like make contact, but it was a verbal match. So Lindor is pretty much was accusing the Yankees of using like whistles or whatever to like sign steal. And he had like hit a home run, and then he was going around like taunting Stanton and telling him that they're blowing whistles. And then Stanton hits a home run, is like rounding the bases and starts chirping back at Lindor, and the bench is clear and the bullpens come out. Like I said, no scuffle actually happened, but it was pretty interesting. This game was it was one hell of a game. I mean, it might be right up there with the Field of Dreams games for games of the year so far.
Yeah, that was interesting. This was also it's some Sunday night baseball, so it was in a national TV audience. Although, with it being the opening weekend of the NFL, I think it probably had lower ratings than a lot of Sunday night baseball games have had. But um, it was interesting. I mean, for one thing, I don't think Lindor should be complaining about anybody. He should be focusing on how he can get better. Him and Baez seem to since they got to the Mets together, they seem to be complaining constantly and not actually like performing all the time. I mean, Baez has actually played pretty well lately, but I mean, and it seems like Lindor's played a little bit better too. But both of them have been, um, it seems like every time you look up, they're complaining about someone trying to start something. So that screams to me if teams not very focused on winning right now, just trying to start stuff. But accusing other teams of cheating. So maybe Lindor should be maybe the Mets should start blowing whistles when they get an off-speed pitch. But anyways, but yeah. So I mean, I think you know, I don't blame Stanton for being upset. I mean, you get accused of cheating, so I don't blame him for taunting him, yelling at him around the bases. Like I would probably do the same thing, hit a home run and yell at him, and then I mean, I think just I'm glad that there wasn't a real scuffle happen about it because it can be a little bit much, but you don't want it to escalate in a situation like that. But we'll see what happens. I think you talk about I like I like having that kind of stuff in the game. I think it's good for the game to have some rivalries and some for some intensity. It adds that just adds intensity to the game.
Yeah.
So I think I think that's a good thing. So
It makes it sort of feel like it's more of a postseason baseball type feel. I mean, that's at least how it feels to me. Is it makes me more invested in it. Like it's the crowd's in it more. The players want it so much more now because like they're angry at the other team. They're just like screw that guy. And to me, it just feels more of like a postseason vibe, which is completely awesome.
yeah, it does, and that's one thing that that intensity. We want that intensity to be up throughout the regular season too. We don't get that intensity all the time, and that's something that a lot of people don't watch baseball every day because we don't always have that. But obviously this was a scenario that having some of that intensity was definitely helped in a national stage and stuff. Um, I think that was that was very very welcome to see a little bit of a little bit of animosity happen between the two teams. So we'll see what happens. I think I don't know if I don't think baseball's a sport where just constant trash talk is really the best thing for it.
Right.
Um, especially with the amount of games these guys play. But sometimes, when it's big rivalry, two teams, you know, struggling teams fighting for the postseason. The Mets are on the outside looking in right now with they still got a small chance at being able to come back and make it. And then of course the Yankees have been just in a tailspin. So there's a lot of frustration going on, and these types of things can show off that frustration and intensity that these teams have, and I think that was obviously something to look at in this game, and it's a good game too. So I think that was Lindor hit 3 home runs in that game, right?
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so yeah, that was a big game for him, but yeah, so interesting stuff there for sure.
Absolutely. Well, let's jump over to the let's go over the series that we had last week, and then what we're looking forward to, and how that kind of lines up, like where the wild card standings is and stuff right now. But we had the Yankees versus the Blue Jays was the first series that we highlighted for 3. I believe that was in New York, if I'm not mistaken. And Toronto ended up sweeping that series and pretty much vaulting themselves right back into wild card and playoff contention, which we kind of mentioned a little bit last week.
Right. So, I think the Yankees or the Blue Jays, sorry, the Blue Jays offense is just insane, and they've been good all year, but they haven't all been good at the same time. And right now, they're all clicking. I mean, Gurriel had a huge week, um, and Teoscar Hernandez had a huge week, and then of course Vlad Jr. as he always does had a huge week. So, Vlad Jr. is making it very close for AL MVP too. He's
Mm-hmm.
played so well as of late and Ohtani has played well, but he's not at the plate. At least he hasn't been quite what he was for a while. He's still good. He still played well, but he hadn't been quite what he was like for the first half of the season. Of course, Ohtani also has turned it up on the mound some, in the last month or two, so that's helped him a lot. But it's going to be hard to vote against the Triple Crown winner. So I think that's something to look at for sure. But I mean, the Blue Jays just have been killing it lately, and the Yankees badly needed to win one or two of these games, try to stop that momentum a little bit and keep them out and keep them in contention. And of course, that didn't happen last week. So looking at the wild card standings, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute, Toronto's actually moved ahead of New York now in the wild card. So Toronto's the number 1 wild card at this current stage, and so that's a big deal. That series that was huge for the Blue Jays to win those games.
Yeah. And I did misspeak. It was for 4 games and not 3 games. But Toronto still did sweep the series.
Yeah.
But that what it
Big
might
time.
do is it brings the season series a lot closer, to where it will, if they end at a tie, it will go to the division record against each other for like who would have like home field advantage or whatever. So I'm not sure what their records are against each other, but those 4 games make it a hell of a lot closer for sure. But you've been talking about the Blue Jays offense. I mean, we haven't even mentioned that, on Saturday they went off for 11 runs in 7 innings. And then on Sunday they had 22 runs in a game.
Yeah, of course that was the Orioles. So
It's
I mean,
still, I
you
mean,
scored 22 runs against the Orioles, but yeah, I'm just kidding. A lot of people were making fun of that on Sunday with the NFL's opening day, that they're just trying to put up NFL scores. I mean, you look at the Blue Jays outscored almost every team or half the teams in the NFL, and then of course the Orioles scored 7 runs. They still outscored the Packers, but
actually,
that's unfortunate.
so the Blue Jays, they had a double header. They had 2 7-inning games. They put up 11 in both of those games. So in 2 days, they scored 44 runs. I didn't even
Yeah,
realize
and
that.
now they're outscoring college teams.
Yeah. So that's insane. Absolutely insane week from Toronto. We had mentioned a couple weeks ago to look out for this team. They were a team that could really get hot. And their pitching's actually been really solid as of late. So they're especially a team that could get really scary going into a playoff series. Although if you're in a 1-game playoff against the Yankees, you're going to have to face Cole. So we'll see how that
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, Cole with no sticky stuff though is not. I mean, he's still good, but not quite as
As long as he doesn't,
alarming as
as long as he doesn't blow out his hamstring again.
yeah, that too. So
Uh, Well, let's move on to the next one. We've talked about this. I feel like these teams have been playing for the past couple weeks against each other, but that's the Rays and Red Sox again. They played for 3 this week. Rays took 2 of the 3. Mind the Red Sox are still battling with a bunch of that COVID issues. I believe they have got. I know they've got Xander Bogaerts back now, but I think they placed a couple more of their pitchers back on the COVID list as well.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Boston, but it's obviously something we have to talk about with it being a big deal right now in the postseason push. But yeah, I mean the Rays have took the stranglehold on this division. They got a big lead. Um, they're going to win this division most likely. I mean that they've got a
9-game lead.
9-game lead. Yeah. But so that from the Rays standpoint, that series wasn't all that important, except to just continue to tick off a few more wins to clinch that division. But for the Boston, that was a big to lose those games because I mean right now it's tied. I mean they're tied with the Yankees and they're a half game behind Toronto in the wild card. So that was a big deal and they got to win every game they can right now. So the good thing for the Red Sox is, though, that they weathered the storm. They did take one of those games out of that series against the Rays. So with players being out, so that's really important because they also took 3 games against the Rays off the calendar. So if you're able to weather the storm against the teams like the Rays, the best team in the American League right now, the ability to take a game, not lose a lot of ground, and get those games out of the way is helpful. So
Yeah, absolutely. And just looking at where they're at right now, they're basically tied for that last wild card spot, but because the Yankees have the tiebreaker over them, and I have one like 0.001 more percentage point than the Red Sox, it puts the Red Sox out of playoff spot as of right now. So it's going to be huge if they get those pieces back. I believe Sale was one of the ones that had just went on the COVID list, so they really need to get him back again because that pitching staff has struggled a lot as of late, especially with the injuries and then this COVID outbreak. So they're going to – I don't think we're going to talk about them. Yeah, they do have a big series this week that we will talk about in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But the next one we had was the Phillies and Brewers. It was in Milwaukee, 4-3. The Phillies blew out the Brewers in game 1. I think it was like 17-0 or something. It was something stupid. And then the Brewers came back and took the next 2 to take 2 out of 3.
Yeah. So game 1, obviously the Phillies came out on fire, and I think they might have been facing Woodruff in that game, which that's very tough to put up a lot of runs in a Woodruff start. But they came out game 1, played well.
It was Woodruff.
Yeah, it was Woodruff. So then the other 2 games, though, it was it was all Brewers in game 2. I mean, it was basically a mirror image of game 1, except the Brewers were the ones that won. And then game 3, the Brewers were able to take a 1-run win. But that was an important series for the Phillies. They need to. It's kind of the same way as with the Red Sox Rays series. They needed to get one of those games out of the way, those 3 games out of the way against the tough opponent, because their schedule gets a lot easier. They still have 7 games against the Pirates left, which is pretty crazy. But the Phillies need to win every game they can. They've fallen behind in the East again, 4.5 games. They're losing to the Cubs tonight right now, so they really needed to win that game. But the important thing also for the Phillies is that they're still in the wild card race too, with the struggles that the Padres are taking, which we'll talk about in a second. But so we'll see what happens this weekend. But that was a big series win for the Brewers. They've taken control of the Central. They're not gonna give up that lead. So they're a shoe-in right now for their division, and so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. The Phillies have a pretty easy schedule coming up. I mean, they face Baltimore, or they have the Cubs right now, the Mets this weekend, and then they go Baltimore, like Pittsburgh, and then it's the Braves, but then Marlins. So like the only team that they really face that has a really big winning record is the Braves.
I think they have the Mets still too. Who
the Mets are this
while
weekend?
they don't,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the Mets don't have a huge winning record, but
No.
they're still a pretty dangerous team. So
yeah. But still, I mean, other than those 2 series, I mean, it's pretty easy going. So they're going to need to win some of those games at least. But we'll move on to, you kind of hinted on it, and that's the Padres and Dodgers series. I was in Los Angeles for 3. The Dodgers ended up sweeping that series, pretty much just blowing them out. I mean, I know Saturday was a close game, but they won 3-0 on Friday, which it did not even feel like it was close at all. Julio Urias just shut them down. And then Sunday was unfortunate. Blake Snell got hurt. I think it was like 11 pitches in. He did something to his groin. He had to leave early and kind of threw the Padres into a bullpen game, and they ended up losing 8-0 in that game.
Yeah, this series was really, I mean, the Padres' schedule's so tough going forward. I mean, they had this past weekend against the Dodgers. Now they get the Giants. It's like they're not catching a break right now, and I mean, they had to win at least one of those games. They can't keep getting swept. They gotta win. They gotta find a way to win some games against big teams. It's not a situation like the Red Sox or the Phillies had, where you can kind of weather that 3-game series, but you got an easier opponents coming up. Maybe make some ground back up. I mean, the Padres had to win 1 or 2 games in that Dodgers series, and they couldn't do it. So, I mean, I'm really worried about them even being in the postseason now. They're technically tied for the second wild card now, and a little more on that later, though.
Yeah, they're in a 3-way tie.
Yeah,
So
so
we'll talk about that a little bit. But then we also have one more series, and we're going to talk about the Red Sox again because it just seems like they're going to be one of the teams we talk about right now with fighting for that last wild card. But they had we had the battle of which color socks was better, and the White Sox took this battle 2-3, or 2 out of 3.
yeah, again, it was one of those things real similar to that Rays Red Sox series that the Red Sox they got opportunities coming up and being able to weather having their players out. There's not much time left, but they still got enough games to make it up, and being able to win one of those 3 against the White Sox was helpful to them. And of course, the White Sox are just on cruise control. There is nobody challenging them in their division, so they're the only team above 500, and they're a shoe in.
Yeah, they really are, and I mean, we've talked a lot about the White Sox with how good they are, and they've got some of their pieces back now. I believe I saw Lucas Giolito and Tim Anderson were both activated off the IL today, so they're getting some more reinforcements. But like you said, they're on cruise control until the playoffs. So interesting that the way that it set it up, and we'll talk a little bit more about how the wild card sets up with these next the games that are happening this week. That starts with the San Francisco Giants versus San Diego Padres for 4. That's in San Francisco. The Padres Giants won yesterday big time, and then they have a 2 or a 1-0 lead in the second inning right now.
Yeah, so that's a series that the Giants. I mean, the Padres need to, like I say, they just need to win some games. I mean, they got to find a way to win some of these games because I mean they are just reeling right now, and they're down to their playoff odds are down to 26% on Fangraphs. So just really a struggle for them.
Yeah, it really has been. We've hit on it, especially their pitching staff. Darvish has been terrible, especially since the sticky stuff cracked down. Blake Snell hasn't been good, but as of lately, he looked a lot better before that groin injury on Sunday. Denilson Lamet was a guy they thought was going to be big time for them. He's now moved to the bullpen now. They've already lost. Before the year, they had Clevenger was out. They just have to find some way to win some of these games. I mean, I feel you have to split. You have to find some way to split with San Francisco. The series, and then looking forward, we'll talk about them in just a minute. They have a big series against St. Louis this weekend that they need to do, especially since they're in that wild card battle.
Yeah, and I saw a stat earlier that the Padres traded 33 players away, and
Yeah.
the return that they got for that was they pulled out 7 WAR in
Mm-hmm.
in 2 seasons from
Yeah.
that. So that's just to me is um, that shows a lot about what's happened there. And I mean, it's one of those things where you can trade all you want to, but you better get it right. You can't just trade people for the hell of it and hope that they work out. Like,
Yeah, and it feels like honestly that the Padres, they just made too many moves. It feels like, because like you have Tommy Pham, which you play like half the time now. He's been pretty decent this year. You have guys like Adam Frazier, who you brought over, who you wanted to make him a utility guy, but now he's kind of been thrust into playing every day, which he was good in Pittsburgh for that. But now Cronenworth, you put him playing every day, but then you are benching like Ha-Seong Kim, a high-profile free agent you brought over this offseason. You haven't even really given him a chance. He hasn't been good in the chances you have given him, but you haven't gave him a real place to run with. You have Will Myers, who's splitting time with Pham in that outfield. Now that you have Tatis playing the outfield, you have Grisham, who's still playing out there. Like, you just feel like you have too many pieces that you aren't giving everybody a consistent runway with. And then the pitching staff, the way that they've battled this year and had injuries, and ever since the sticky stuff cracked down, how some of these players haven't been nearly as good. It just feels like it all went kind of wrong for the Padres this year, especially even with the Tatis dislocating his shoulder twice.
Yeah, the Tatis injuries were a big deal, but yeah, it's been tough, a tough year for them, especially down the stretch. But real quick, we'll get on to our series for this week, but quick do a quick rundown of the standings, and not really a rundown like we'd been doing, but just kind of a where we stand here with 2 weeks left, and in the postseason races, and the lowest chance to win a division right now. Um, this is based on the Fangraphs odds, is the Giants at 58%. But other than that's in the NL West. But other than that, the lowest chance is 89% for a team to win the division. That's the Braves in the NL East. So most of these divisions are pretty well wrapped up. The NL East is still worth keeping an eye on because the Phillies have such an easy schedule. The Braves' schedule is still kind of tough. I mean, kind of average really, but the Braves have a 4.5 game lead, so that's not completely insurmountable. But looking around, that there's a lot of difficult there's not too many division races, but the wild card races at this stage are crazy.
Yeah, they are. You look at the National League, we have a three-way tie for that final wild card spot, and then you have the Phillies 2 games back and the Mets 3 games back. So all those teams are still very much in contention for that wild card spot. The first one's pretty much locked up. I mean, the Dodgers have a 17-game lead, so you're kind of just on that last wild card spot. And then we look towards the AL, and really both wildcard spots are wide open. You have Toronto has a half-game lead. The Yankees and the Red Sox we talked about right now are tied, with the Yankees just having a little tiebreaker there. But you have Seattle 2 games back. Oakland still only 2.5 games back as well. And they're fighting for 2 wildcard spots. And you got 3 teams in one division and the other 2 in one division. So they're going to be beating up on each other a lot here coming down the rest of the season.
Yeah, so looking at the odds according to Fangraphs for these races, the for a wild card, and we'll look at just the playoffs odds because most of them are not. Most of the division races are pretty wrapped up, but look at the NL West. The Giants and Dodgers, whichever one doesn't win that division, which that division is going to come down to the wire. Is still a 2.5 game advantage for the Giants. So they do have a little bit of a advantage right now, but it's not a huge advantage. Their schedule's a lot tougher remaining than the Dodgers, so it could end up coming down to the wire there. But outside of that, the Padres, a sub 30% chance to make the playoffs now, as we talked about. Just not great there. They have one of the toughest schedules remaining in the league, a 548 winning percentage of the remaining teams they play. Um, I mean, just really, really, really difficult. And then you look at um, the other teams involved. The Reds and the Cardinals are both involved, as the Reds probably have the best chance. They have the easiest remaining schedule outside of the Phillies in baseball, but the Phillies are a couple games behind the Reds still right now. The Reds are tied for that second wild card. Fangraphs gives them a 43% chance, roughly, of winning the division, and I mean of winning the second wild card spot. And the Cardinals are behind them at getting close to 20%. The Cardinals have really taken a step forward, and tied for that second wild card spot. That team just seems to find a way to win right now. So the Cardinals are definitely right in the thick of things. Um, And then the Phillies and Mets have an outside chance still. The Phillies still have a decent chance. They've been playing real well, and they've got that easy schedule remaining. Well, they had been playing real well, but the past week has been pretty abysmal for them. In fact, they lost today. I believe that's gone final with the Cubs. Um, they were losing 6-3, and it's gone final. So, they got to take advantage of that weak schedule really to get there. But in fact, the Mets are going to tie them if they can win tonight. So it's one of those things. Very very difficult to predict what's going to happen. We'll see what happens. It's going to come down to the wire. We might have tiebreakers here.
Yeah, I mean, there might be game 163s and all kinds of weird stuff, which is awesome for the sport of baseball, because you pretty much get an extra playoff game in there, before a one-game playoff. So, but we'll talk about the wild card standings as we're going through this, and what it means. Next one we have, which was Tampa Bay and Toronto. We're supposed to be playing for 3. They've already split 1-1 of those games. And that's with the updated standings. We were telling you already, with Toronto half game up in the wild card right now. But, they're going to have to find a way to win that game tomorrow to really, really give themselves, a good push of momentum going the rest of the way.
Yeah, so if you're looking at the American League, the divisions are all wrapped up. I mean, the closest one, 6.5 games, and that's the lead for the Astros right now. I mean, that's wrapped up. I mean, there's no chance that they'd have to lose, like 8 or 9 games in a row and have the A's or the Mariners just get smoking hot to get anybody to catch the Astros. And then the other two are basically, I mean, you're just counting down the games to clinching. But you look at the wild card is insane right now. There's really 5 teams involved still. You have the Blue Jays, the Yankees, the Red Sox, and then you have the A's and Mariners are all still involved. The Mariners are only 2 games back. The A's are 2.5 games back of the second wild card right now. So they're still in it, but they don't have the leg up. Right now, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, and the Yankees are right there within a half game of each other. The Blue Jays have the one wild card right now, and then the Red Sox are a half game back, and the Yankees are tied for the second wild card with a half game back. So just a lot of insane insane stuff right now. In fact, if you look at the Fangraphs odds, this is based off projection systems. So the A's and Mariners odds are a lot lower because the projection systems really like the 3 AL East teams right now, just in terms of their ability to win games and their talent level and stuff. But the A's and Mariners are both 6% and 4.5% respectively. But you look at the AL East, and all 3 teams that are battling for those wild card spots in the AL East are above 55% in their chances to make the playoffs right now, according to Fangraphs. So I think that's pretty crazy. You look at the Blue Jays. The way they've been playing lately, I would probably give them the advantage. But the Red Sox remaining schedule is very easy, so that's going to make it really interesting to see what we might have there. The Red Sox, obviously, I think are probably the least talented of the 3 teams, but they've got the easiest schedule. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens because those teams are effectively, I mean, basically tied. So they just played a different number of games. So it'll be interesting to see if the Red Sox are able to, take advantage of that, or if the Blue Jays continue their hot streak and just kind of pull away. And we'll see if the Yankees can turn it around. They've won 2 of their last 10. So they've got to desperately figure it out soon, or they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and you're mentioning how big this is for the Red Sox. They're facing Seattle this week, for 3. They've already Seattle won yesterday. They're in the second inning, tied at 0 right now. So it's going to be a big series for the Red Sox and even for the Mariners. We said they're only 2 games out of the wild card right now. So if they beat the Red Sox the next 2, I mean, that vaults them right up there into contention, for that wild card spot, since the Red Sox are tied for that second spot right now.
Yeah, and I think everybody out there is pulling for the Mariners. They haven't been to the playoffs since 2001, I believe.
Yeah.
Which was the year they won like 115 games. So everyone wants the Mariners to figure out how to win this division. Win this wild card, get to the postseason for the first time in like 20 years. So I don't know if it's going to happen. I think the odds are probably against them right now, but we'll see. You never know. You never know till the game's been played. So I don't think the Giants had very high postseason odds coming in, and they became the first team to clinch a postseason spot, yesterday. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then looking forward to this weekend, we got 3 massive series this weekend. You got the Dodgers and Reds for 3. That's in Cincinnati. That's going to be a massive series with the Dodgers trying to catch the Giants, while the Giants are facing Atlanta for 3. And then the Reds are trying to battle for that wild card spot. And then also just throwing the middle of that wild card race in there, you got San Diego versus St. Louis for 3 as well. So all of these teams are these 3 series this weekend are pretty much primarily around the NL West and then that NL wild card race.
Yeah, there's really not a ton of stuff going on in the AL wild card this weekend when it comes to um, the teams matching up against each other or matching up against marquee opponents. But the race for the NL it's pretty good. I mean, you've got the 2 teams that are in the tightest division race in those 3 series. You've got the 3 teams in those 3 series that are like the 3 main contenders for the second wild card spot, and then you've got another team in there that's probably that has the closest division race right now in the outside of the NL West. So I mean, it's that those 3 series are huge. And a little note on that Atlanta San Francisco series is that the Braves have pushed Charlie Morton and Max Fried to that series, so that could be some help for the Dodgers and of
Thank
course
you.
the Braves, and maybe hurt the Giants a little bit having to face the 2 top pitchers from the Braves. But we'll see what happens. It'll be 3 interesting series. I think this is probably the end of the line for San Diego. They have got to take a couple games in that series against St. Louis, or they're probably done, in my opinion. In Cincinnati, this is a scenario where this is really, I think, their last tough opponent of the year. So if they can figure out a way to pull a couple games out against LA, or maybe even one game, they can take advantage of the rest of their schedule. So that's very important for them. And then of course, you're looking at wins and losses of LA and San Francisco. I mean, San Francisco cannot. They got to keep winning because LA's just been right on their tail for the last month. Just that both teams are winning. So whichever one of those teams stumbles first is going to be the team that doesn't win that division and has to play that win or go home game. So
Yeah, it's going to be big for them. The Dodgers have an easier schedule with the San Francisco still having, I believe it's like 10 games against the Padres or something. That was
of course,
starting last night.
the way the
Yeah,
Padres are playing right now, I don't know if I'd consider call that a super tough schedule, but
no, but they still
tougher
have to
than
face
tougher than the Diamondbacks. So
Rockies and stuff. So, but anyways, that's kind of what the wild card race is looking like. We're getting down to only, from last Sunday, there was 3 weeks until the final day. So October 3rd, that's the day the regular season ends. So we're right there. There's no more time to be laying off. We're under 3.5 or we're under 3 weeks, getting ready for 2 weeks by the time we talk to you guys next time. These races are going to be a lot closer. I can tell you that for sure, because especially with these series that's happening this weekend, with all of the big teams that need to win, pretty much facing in some sort of each other. It's going to be a really fun weekend added on top of having college football and regular NFL football and NASCAR and all that stuff. It's going to be an insane weekend to be a sports fan for sure.
absolutely. So moving on, our last thing we wanted to do today was, as we do every week, our players of the week. So we can start. We can start with our pitchers this week. And who would you like to pick as your pitcher?
So I went with Eric Lauer. I mentioned him a little bit earlier. He had a really good start with, I think it was like 6 or 7 no-hit innings against the Indians. We usually like to pick guys that have 2 start weeks. He had 2 starts, but also the top of this pitchers list. We've talked about every single one of them. You got Sandy Alcantara, you got Corbin Burns and Max Scherzer, or 3 of the top 4 people on this list, and we've mentioned them all a lot. So I went with Eric Lauer because he had that no-hitter start, or that no flirting with the no-hitter. And his other one was really solid as well. On the week, 12 in the third innings pitched, 9.49 strikeouts per nine, 1.46 walks per nine, a 0.73 ERA. Wasn't backed up as much by his FIP, but still a 1.54 FIP, 0.6 WAR on the week. And really good for that Milwaukee staff. That is, if he can pitch anywhere near like that with that top three, it's going to be a very scary team to face in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I wanted to touch on Adam Wainwright again. His metrics weren't quite as good this week, but he had a 2.51 ERA in 14 innings, and I just wanted to mention him again just because this is a guy who, at 38, 39 years old, has just been absolutely out of his mind this year, back to like peak form, and I mean he's really been the guy keeping the Cardinals in that wild card race and putting them in position to maybe make the playoffs when for a long time there, their odds were like under 5% to make the playoffs, and he's just kind of put him on his back as a 39-year-old pitcher. So, while I have talked about him in the past, few weeks, I wanted to just bring a little bit more light to him because he's been extremely good. Um, but and also just to honorably mention, I mean, Sandy Alcantara, we can't talk about him every week, but he's just been insanely good lately. In 17 innings this week, a .53 ERA, tons of strikeouts, not many walks. Corbin Burns, we talked about him earlier, is throwing the no-hitter, 14 strikeouts, 1 walk in 8 innings. That's a .04 FIP, which is an ERA predictor. So his ERA did outperform his FIP. His zero is a better ERA than .04, but yeah, so that happened, and then you had Max Scherzer. I mean, we talked about him earlier, but it's 3,000 strikeout and stuff. He almost threw a perfect game in that game, and I think he had 9 strikeouts in 8 innings, and I mean,
Yeah,
what else can you say?
7 and a third perfect.
Yeah, I mean, what else can you say about him? So, wanted to honorably mention those guys, but we talk about them every week. So, my player I wanted to pick was Adam Wainwright. Like I say, 2.51 ERA, 14 innings. He only had a 5 strikeout per 9 rate this week, but he didn't walk a lot of guys. I mean, he's a veteran pitcher, a lot of weak contact, locates extremely well, and he's just continuing to put up great numbers. So, wanted to call him out again as a guy who is honestly building, for people who are not super big into the advanced stats, he's really building more of a little bit of a Cy Young candidacy. But I mean, I wouldn't pick him, but I mean, there's going to be a lot of voters who are going to put him on their ballots. So good for him.
I mean, he has to get votes over Ryan Tepera, right?
Right. So, but I mean, he's just been, he's been very good. So
yeah, he has been. Who do you have for your hitter of the week?
So my hitter of the week this week was I kind of hate to pick him because my team's battling his team for the division, but it's gonna be Bryce Harper. He has been really good lately, putting the team on his back. He's really the only player that's performing on that team right now, at least hitter wise. This week he hit .444 with a 600 on base and a 1.111 slugging percentage, which is a 317 WRC plus. He hit 4 home runs. This is only in 6 games. He hit 4 home runs, 6 RBIs. I mean, he's been out of his mind. 28% strikeout rate, 8%. I mean, 28% walk rate, 8% strikeout rate, .7 WAR in the last 7 days, which is not the most, but the 2 guys who have had more played 2 more games than him because they had double headers and played a full week. So, I mean, just what else can you say about Bryce Harper? That just the fact that he's playing at an MVP level right now, which we haven't seen since his MVP year. So, good for him. And the unfortunately for him, his team is really not picking him up. So.
Yeah, Bryce Harper is, when he's locked in, he's one of the funnest players to watch in the game. Like, he can pretty much do everything when he's locked in, and it's super fun to watch. I know you're not as much of a fan as having to face him, but Bryce has always been one of my favorite players in general. And watching him, kind of how he was in 2015 per se, it's been really fun. This past last month really has been insane. I mean, he's hit 337 with 11 homers and a OPS of over 1200 the last month. So really, really cool to see Bryce doing that and trying to single-handedly carry the Phillies to the playoffs. So,
Yep, no doubt.
my hitter for this week is the same person that I unfortunately picked to win MVP this year. We talked about him a little bit earlier, but that was Francisco Lindor. This week he's hit 280, an OPS over 1200. He's had 4 homers, 8 RBIs, 8 runs. Mainly that 3-homer game was the reason I had picked him, and that so that Matt and you guys could bag on me for picking him as my MVP earlier before the season started. But this is sort of the Lindor that the Mets were hoping to get, coming into this season, and he really struggled a lot of the time in the beginning of the year, and then he went on the IL most recently, and he's come back, and he's been playing really well since he's come back. I don't know if that's just that he's kind of figured some stuff out. He's got one of his best friends, Javi Baez, there, and then they kind of did the whole thing with the fans and got kind of everything riled up. And I don't know if that put a little bit more pressure on themselves and are making them perform a little bit better. But Lindor's picked it up as of late, and I wanted to highlight him because he had that 3-homer game on Sunday Night Baseball against the Yankees.
Yeah, that was that was a real impressive game, and I mean the Mets needed him and to pick it up, and they needed Baez to come in and make a good impact. Of course, Baez being one of the most streaky players in the big leagues, and both of them have done that really. Lindor's played a lot better since coming back, and Baez has picked it up lately. But the rest of the Mets are a disgrace right now. Honestly, they're just not good. So as much as Baez and Lindor have tried to carry that team, they can only do so much. But definitely, Lindor, Baez, and of course, you picking Lindor as Player of the Week. Both of them honestly had real similar weeks. But you look at the fact that they're really the only reason the Mets are still even in contention right now. If they weren't for Lindor and Baez having big weeks, the Mets would be pretty close to being eliminated. So, definitely something that's a welcome sight for the Mets. Outside of obviously they need more help they need a lot more help to catch, either the wild card or the Braves in the division lead. So,
Absolutely. But this was a really fun episode. I think we were pretty much engaged the entire time. Let us know what you guys think for sure. We're always, willing to or wanting to hear back from you guys. And what do you think about this wild card race coming up? It's it's going to be really interesting. We want to know what you guys have to say about that. You got anything else you wanna hit on before we wrap this show up?
not too much. Fun week coming up. Got some big games, and especially in the NL, and gonna keep an eye out on everything. And obviously sports overload this week. It's gonna be fun. So can't wait. Can't wait for Saturday and college football slate. But yeah, I mean, you just look at the whole week in general. It's gonna be fun, and a lot of really big games, and teams trying to play spoiler. You saw the NL, all 3 of the NL East race lost tonight to teams that had losing records. Or actually, I don't think the Mets is over yet. I think they're playing the Cardinals. But the two teams that did that sounded a lot like the Jameis Winston thing too. But the two teams that did the two teams that are leading the NL East both lost to teams with losing records tonight. So just kind of goes to show you how how things have gone. Um, but we'll see what happens. I'm excited for the rest of the season in these next couple weeks.
Yeah, I really am too, and getting ready for that playoff baseball. It's the most fun time of year for me. Is nothing beats good playoff baseball, at least. So, but anyways, thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Bat Flip Podcast, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.